Okay,
Let's get into our mate Harold the H. Oh, cock-a-doodle-doo. Mate, you really there's no energy there. Harold's going to tell us a story.
No, go back.
Harold the H. P. Cock-a-doodle-doo.
There we go.
Here he is, history out there. He's got a great story. 175 years ago, a milkman in Ipswich married not for love but for his wife's wages. Isn't that what normally happens anyhow? Put him up.
Well, I don't know, Danny. Come on, show a bit of love for Valentine's Day. And I love you all in the office and the energy.
I love your sister Sophie. Sophie, I hope you're listening. Tell us a story about this milkman.
Yes. Look, you say it wasn't for love. Well, I've had a thought. Look, maybe it was for love, but I'll let you decide. Now, in 1850, Hugh Maxwell was taken to the Ipswich court. Now, he would have a bit of bad luck. His 6-year-old son would die when his clothes caught on fire.
Again.
Yeah, I know, I've got a whole list of them. And also, Maxwell's wife would die of sunstroke and, ironically, the very next day be buried in torrential rain.
Oh.
And yet, despite this misfortune, Maxwell was not bitter at all, but actually a really nice fellow. In 1849, he employed as a servant girl the 19-year-old Celia Moran. Now, shortly afterwards, she fell in love and became betrothed to be married. And so Maxwell bought her wedding dress and paid for her wedding dinners. And so on Australia Day, the 26th of January 1850, Celia married the much older 44-year-old Bundamba milkman, Michael Christie. Now, Celia and Michael may well have married for love, Danny. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But pretty soon after the marriage, their main focus did become taking Celia's former employer to court. That's the 1850 court case in which the Christies sued Maxwell for the modest sum of 5 shillings, being alleged unpaid wages. Now, the Christies won, and poor Maxwell had to come up with the court costs as well, and couldn't even claim back any cost of the wedding dress or the dinners.
Wow.
So, yeah, no, it's rough. And look, the Christie love, it did blossom into at least half a dozen children together. But it was probably children who ruined the love story. You see, while the Christie babies were being born, the milkman father went on a fighting rampage across Ipswich. Now, amongst his assault victims was a Mrs. Preston and her children. Her husband was later nominated by the bishop to be the church warden of St. Paul's. Then there was Thomas Holt, the former New South Wales colonial treasurer and member for Ipswich and Brisbane. Now, obviously, there was some bad blood there because Christie later supported Benjamin Cribb, who replaced Holt in Parliament. Christie also assaulted a John Maxted, whose only fault was that he once drove a team of horses too fast through town. Anyway, look, the Christie fighting was taken up by the whole family when in 1879 their son John was charged with assaulting his father Michael and threatening to cut off his head with an axe. Now, this also involved the mother Celia and siblings Patrick and Jane, the whole family making claims and counterclaims against one another. The outcome was that son John was fined £20 and put on a £10 good behaviour bond. Now, the family feud was back in court the following year in 1880 when son Patrick, and by now he's 17 years old, was charged by his mother Celia for assault and running away with a pillowcase of beef, damper and tea. Now, Patrick was sentenced to a rather harsh 3 months in jail with hard labour. It seemed over the top, especially just damper and tea. But anyway, in 1884, the father Michael passed away when he burst a blood vessel while ploughing. Celia was then left to fight her children on her own. Now, in 1887, the son John, who previously threatened to cut off his father's head with an axe, this time he threatened to kill his mother with a revolver. And another son was also somehow involved. For that, John was bound over to keep the peace towards his mother for 6 months with a £40 good behaviour bond, which didn't seem much given that other brother got hard labour. Anyway, Celia died in Ipswich Hospital in 1896 from chronic bronchitis, and he's buried with her husband Michael in the Ipswich Cemetery. But her children didn't see fit to include her on the headstone.
Oh, gee.
So it's all a very sad love story from Michael and Sylvia Christie from 175 years ago. And look, it was made really complicated with somewhat unruly children.
He was a very busy man, that Ipswich milkman, and he didn't marry for love, but he married for his wife's wages. He's a bludger. Now tell us, you've got this story and lots of Ipswich stories on historyouthere.com. What else can they find there?
Yeah, that's right. Well, 236 short stories on Ipswich, but there's about 500 stories all up, all short stories, all local history, stuff that unknown and forgotten, or people just should be remembered. Historyouthere.com. Also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and YouTube. You can find me everywhere, Danny. And you even post photos of me as well, so I really appreciate it.
He's one of the great storytellers, and he's a beautiful soul, and he's got a beautiful sister, Sophie. Sophie, how are you? It's Daniel P. Hoyland speaking. We're on West Bremer Radio at 24 degrees at 8:22.